Hey guys, welcome back to Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. This is your host, Janie, Charlot, and Russell Bruce.
Hello, everyone out there.
And welcome to a new episode. Today, we are talking about how to empower our relationships. So, our relationships, romantically, business, with our children, with our siblings, all across the board. Because the truth is, as humans, we are in relationship with each other, and everything is about relationship. And as much as we think we're separate, we're actually very interdependent on each other. Okay. So I think it's so important that we talk about how do we empower each other and how do we have positive, healthy relationships. Okay. So this podcast is inspired by divine law, all right? Because whether we are aware of it or not, we are under divine and natural law, all right? So it's important that we get familiar with these laws and stay in alignment with it. So this podcast is about the law of relativity, okay? And the law suggests that we are inclined to compare things in our world, but in reality, everything is neutral. Relativity exists in all things, meaning that it comes down to our perspective and our perception. So we want to talk about how do we stay within this natural law and have empowering relationships with each other. All right. So we're going to give about 7 ways in how we can empower each other in relationships, no matter what relationship or what type of relationship it is. So the first and foremost, number 1 is respect the law. All right. Your perceptions is based on your own opinions, your beliefs, your experiences, your trauma, and your level of consciousness. Okay. So when we look out on other people that we may be in relationship with, we are passing judgment often based on our own limited perception, all right? Our own beliefs and experiences that we have had, not quite understanding what that person have had in their own life. So in order to respect the law of relativity, we have to understand that everything is relative. All right. It's all relative on how you see it, your mindset, your experiences, your beliefs, and all of that. So respect the law.
Yeah, and so when we hear the law, right, a lot of times in religious circles, you hear people talk about the law, like the laws Moses came back down out of the hills or out of the mountains on the tabernacles, right? And but there's universal laws outside of, say, a religious belief. Like say, for example, here on Earth, we have, the law of gravity. It may not be the same, on the moon or maybe on another planet, but relative to what we experience here on Earth, your religious law or belief, does not supersede that higher law, right? Like gravity doesn't care if you're a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Christian, or what have you. So when we're speaking of law of relativity and we're talking about it from a divine aspect, so it crosses all religious beliefs or whatever and goes into a knowing. So
Yeah.
this law exists whether you believe in it or not. Like, for example, we're fortunate enough living here in Atlanta, Georgia, to experience all 4 seasons, right? So, you know, this particular land is in harmony with nature. So, like, certain periods of the year, the grass and the leaves are gonna die and fall off, and then come spring, everything's gonna come back to life, and winter's gonna come, it's gonna get cold. So these laws, are perpetual, and they are relative to where you're at. So someone who's, say, living on the equator in Africa, who experiences, temperatures 80 to 100 degrees year round, that's going to be a little bit different. So that's why we say that it's relative.
Yeah. And that is neutral in the end, because it all depends on your perception of it, right? I think I used this in another podcast because we talked about universal laws in another podcast, that 2 people could be looking at the same painting and they come up with two different interpretations of that painting because it's relative. One may say, oh, it's a butterfly. One may say it's a bird. Well, could it be both? It's relative, right? It's relative to what that person's brain is actually seeing and interpreting, and it in experiences, and what somebody else is feeling, what the colors represent. So it's all relative. So that's respecting the law. And if we could respect that in relationship to each other, all right, we can have empowering relationships. Number two is allow freedom, all right? Allow people to be who they need to be. We cannot force our will upon others. And that's so important, because when we force our will upon others, we are out of law. All right. It's actually is against divine law when you do that. So you cannot force your will upon others. Allow freedom. And true love, true unconditional love, is loving in a way that people feel free to be who they need to be. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. That doesn't mean that you allow people to step over your boundaries. No, you allow freedom within your healthy boundaries. All right. You have anything?
Yeah. So, and I was just thinking about something when you were saying that, like, even with children, right? Like, for example, with my children, like, they're currently 17 and 24. So they're constantly teaching me, because it requires me now to be a different type of father than what I was, say, during their more formidable years, especially like up to age 7,
Mm.
because you're more like, a gardener. You're sitting here cultivating a seed that only the Most High has control over. So, one might be a tomato, another one may be like an apple tree, or what have you. So it's like they're gonna grow up to be whatever it is they're gonna be. So they require me to be more, nurturing and loving and really observant, so I'm actually learning from them. At the same time, I think I'm teaching them. I'm learning more by listening to the feedback that I get from them. And also my relationship with my queen, it's like, my job is to, for us to serve one another, right? So it's like I should want to bring out the best in her. So,
We talk about that
yeah,
in another
yeah. So okay, then
service.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna jump the gun. So yeah. So
It is allowing freedom, loving in a way that allows that person to be who they need to be,
right.
and when they need to be it. And what's important to know is that if it doesn't align with who you are or who you need to be, it's okay to go your separate ways, as long as you can go your separate ways in love. That's what's most important, is that you maintain that unconditional love, which is in alignment with source. Okay. Anything that's out of unconditional love is out of alignment. So be free. Allow people to be who they need to be. Allow freedom. True love is freedom. All right. So the next point we want to talk about is have a common goal or purpose. All right. So what is the relationship built on? What is the purpose of the relationship? Every business has a mission. What is the mission of the relationship? Is it to gain material things? Is it to serve the higher good of humanity? Is it to build a family? What is the mission and the goal of the relationship?
Yeah, man. So like, for example, with children per se, is like I would want them to be the very best versions of themselves so that they could be good human beings, foremost over everything. Then also, like, in romantic relationships, I always ask the question, what is it that you could offer that person that they can't get anywhere else?
Mhm.
And what is the reason that you even want to be in a relationship with them?
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
the common
yeah,
goal.
is it some selfish, grandizing reason why you want to be in a relationship with them? or do you feel that you really have something that you can offer them that would better their lives, and that they have something that could better your life, right? Because whether it's like work or whatever, it's like you always would want to leave something at least as good as it was when you got it, or better.
Yeah. And what I think a lot of people do is, instead of having a common goal where that relationship is based on a true mission and purpose, is that it's often a check off for people. Okay, check, got the girl or the guy. Okay, check, did the marriage thing. Okay, check,
Got the house.
got the house. And it's not based on a true common goal or mission, and that's very important. Our relationship, it's definitely founded on the foundational principle of unconditional love. So if we have an argument or if we're in disagreement, we come back to that foundation. We come back there, and what is our next move? Out of love, not out of what Janie wants or what Russell wants or anything like that, but what is the loving thing for us both to do. And also, it's for a mission. We're here to help raise the consciousness of all of humanity. And that is for the greater good of everyone. That's not what's just good for Janie or what's just good for Russell. It is for everyone. So, what is the common goal and purpose of the relationship?
Yeah, it's all about purpose. Like, what is the purpose or meaning of your life? And at the end of the day, I would like to think that it is, contributing to humanity, and not only just living the best life possible for yourself, like being the best version of yourself, is helping others to achieve the same, because ultimately it makes for better relationships, better families, better communities, better countries, better world.
Yeah. So that takes me to number 4, is serve the connection, serve the relationship. So that is what Russell was just saying, is assist that person, assist that child, assist that employee, whatever type of relationship it is, in becoming the best and highest version of themselves. We should all, in all relationship types, we should be serving each other in becoming the best and highest version. So how can I assist? How can I give them a perspective? How can I help relieve their suffering in this moment? So serve the connection in the relationship.
Yeah. And like you said, it's like whether it's work or just meeting a stranger at the gym, in the sauna, and having a conversation about something that is ailing them, or something that they're trying to accomplish. Having kind words, having words of empowerment, right? Having words that are in spirit. Empowerment and inspiration in spirit are the same thing to me. It's like, what can you provide to somebody to help better their lives, right? We
Yeah.
all hold a piece of this puzzle. You can go speak to 100 people, and if you're listening attentively, you'll get a nugget from all 100 of them. Even
Yeah.
the guy living under the bridge, even if it's like what not to do, you're gonna pick up something.
Absolutely. And you have to see that. You have to see the God in every person, the homeless person, prostitute, whoever it is. Don't ever think that you can't learn from that person. I want to add also, while we're talking about serving the connection, serving the relationship, you are serving that person in a way that is free from any expectations. You are serving in a way that this is my human duty to serve, not because I want anything in return, but because it is my duty to do so. And that's a big difference, because people do things for a lot of reasons. And a lot of times people are doing things out of manipulation, out of wanting to get something in return. And then the side effect of that is that these people feel guilty, or they feel like they owe somebody something. And if we're serving each other because it is our human duty to do it, and not because we're trying to get something in return, then we won't place that guilt on other people. Oh, I done all this for you, and this is how you're going to treat me. So we cannot serve in that way. We serve because this is our duty, and we serve from the heart, and we serve without expecting anything in return from that person. You know, if I see that this person has an obstacle in front of them right now, and something I have can give them a different perspective or show them a different way, then it is my human duty. And that is in divine law.
Yeah, and the beauty is if both of you can have an exchange, like where you could contribute to one another's lives,
Yes.
and once again, whether it's work, romantically with children, it's like it should be an exchange that everybody is getting something out of it.
In that exchange is when you feel the presence of God.
Facts.
In that exchange is when you feel the presence of love. You feel like, wow, this person really just soulfully cares. And in that moment, when you feel that, that's when you're feeling the presence of God. And the only thing I want to say is that your repayment will be through the law of divine compensation. All right. That person may not be able to repay you for whatever you do. You're going to get repaid through the law of divine compensation. And that law is whatever I do in love, the divine law will repay me with more love back. All right.
It's all about service. It's like you are paid in accordance with the level of service that you provide. So if you look at most people in the world today who become successful in business, they're providing a service, they're providing a need that people needed. And if it's something that millions of people need, you're going to be even more wealthy with that idea.
Yeah. So next is communication, which is one of my favorites. I think that's probably why we have a podcast. You know, because Russell and I, we do a lot of communicating. I think communication is so important for really solid, empowering relationships. And this is communication with your significant other, your kids, in business, and anything communication. You know, it should be open and honest. And communication is speaking, but it's also listening. I like to listen sometimes to the things that are not said, because you can get a lot of information from people through nonverbal communication. So their body language, energy, read their energy. Energy never dies. Somebody never dies, never lies. Somebody could tell you that they're feeling fine, but their energy shows you, defeat and sadness and everything else. So energy never, never lies. So read both what's being said, but also what's not being said. All right. Because I'm gonna give this quick example. Let's say you're dating someone and you're a female and you ask this guy, hey, what do I mean to you? What is my role in your life? Or how do you see me in your life? And he says, can we not talk about that right now? He didn't say anything, but he said a lot.
Exactly.
So listen to what is not being said. Communication is big. Actions is also a form of communication. People may not say it verbally, but they may show it in actions. Actions is communication.
And like they say that language, 90% of language is nonverbal. So like she said, it's, dress the way you want to be addressed, and it's, simple things like smiles, versus frowns or whatever. You could walk in a room and you could kind of pick up on energy of people. If you're walking into a room and the majority of the people are frowning or got the gorilla grill on, the energy in the room tends to change and you could feel it. So a lot of times, you don't even have to say anything.
Oh,
Like,
they say your energy is introduced before you even open your mouth.
big time. There's certain gas stations that, I could get ready to pull in and something inside of me, it just didn't feel right. And I'll go to another one.
Mhm.
So it's like sometimes you have to pay attention to your own intuition.
Yeah. So communication is so important. And again, you can't expect people to read your mind all the time. So learn how to use your words, I think, is so important. Also, I think communicate anything. Anything can be said in love. All right. Communicate the hard things, communicate the things that you really need this person to know, your spouse, your child, a supervisor, your business partner, whatever it is. Communicate these things. If you don't quite have the words, wait until you have the right words. Sometimes you have to pray for the right words when you're dealing with certain people. But communicate anything in love. You can say anything you need to in love. I think you can be completely honest with people as long as they feel that it's being said in truth and in love.
And there's a way to talk to people. There's a difference between talking to someone and at someone. And if you don't understand that, it's like just watch the reaction of the person you're speaking with. And a lot of times I think it's people have to really understand that the person you're trying to convey the message to is more important than you being right all the time, also.
That's
So,
true.
but you do want to tell people what they need to hear versus, what they want to hear. You don't want to just stroke their ego and misinform them. And, once again, the communication is the key. That's
Yeah.
probably our strong point. We spend a lot
Yeah.
of time having conversations, and
Yeah.
that's how we end up doing a podcast together,
Yeah.
because it's like we could just take those conversations and pass them on to everybody else. Because I think that some of the things that we say, I think some of the other people out there could use them. And if you can, you take chew, like they say, chew the meat, spit out the bones.
Yeah. And I get, I've had somebody ask me, well, how do I say this to someone? I I usually ask, do you want my opinion? And then it allows that person to make the decision if they really want your opinion or if they don't. Because some people, when they're talking, they're just venting and they really don't want your opinion. They just want to be heard. So if you feel that you really want to tell somebody, I always ask, hey, do you want my opinion or do you want me to just listen? Or if it was me, this is how I would do it. Then it is not so offensive and you're not pushing your will upon them because again, we have to stay in divine law, right? To have these empowering relationships. All right. Anything else about communication?
And just to piggyback off of what you just said, is that a lot of times people already know what the answer is. They already know the answer. And if you listen and let them talk, they'll tell you what the problem is. They'll also tell you what the solution is.
Yeah. And I think it also I think who it comes from is also important because I think if you have really true, honest friends or people in your life that that they're not going to BS you, they're going to tell you the truth in love, and they're not going to do it in a way that makes you feel a certain kind of way about the fact that you are thinking that way or feeling that way or saying those things, right? They honor the way you feel but are trying to give you a different perspective. And I think because not everybody is gonna have that true intention for your life in giving you advice. So I think who you talk to and who it comes from plays a role.
Nature.
Yeah. All right. So next is be self-governing. In an empowered relationship, we have to be self-governing. And what that means is I am responsible for my growth and development and healing. My growth, my development, and healing is my responsibility. It is up to self. It is not for Russell to do. It is not for my son to do. It is not for my siblings to do. It is for Janie to do. Self-governing. And that means that I cannot depend on no one to make me feel loved, to make me feel accepted, to make me feel anything. That comes from within me. Self-governing. And what that does in a relationship is allow the person you're in a relationship with, or business, or your child, to also be self-governing. All right. Because relationships are also mirrors. You're mirroring each other often, especially if it's a very close, tied relationship. You're mirroring each other. So self-governing is taking the responsibility for your own personal growth and development.
Yeah, and I think, self-governance is really that sovereignty that everybody longs for, right? We're actually born to be sovereign. But I think it takes a lot of work in the society in which we live, because they try to pass down a set of rules, laws, and beliefs that always don't align up with reality or line up with the Most High's will for you. So, when you do that work on self and reach that self-actualizing point in your life, you do become self-governing. You do take responsibility for your stuff. You know what I mean? And those type of people tend to need less laws and, less martyrs and so forth to follow or whatever.
Yeah.
They just really need freedom to be basically.
Yeah. And it's not even that it's lawless, because you're following divine law.
Exactly.
It's not that you're lawless. You understand that everything you put out in thoughts, words, and actions is mirroring back to you in your current life. So you are following law. You just understand that you are creating. So you are taking responsibility. So
You're following the highest law.
self-governing. And the other thing I want to add is that when we individually take responsibility for our own growth and development and healing, then we collectively help all of humanity. Okay. So I'm gonna give an example. If me and Russell is in a relationship and where there's some things that I have to work on, some things he has to work on, Russell takes the initiative to work on his things, but I don't. I just do this, and just say it's not my responsibility. I am who I am. I don't have to change. I don't have to look at what I need to heal. I don't have to do any of that. We wouldn't have an empowering relationship. Russell would probably grow beyond me. And then he would have to get to the point where he would have to do an assessment. Hey, our values in this mission is not aligned. We will have to go on our journeys in separate ways. And it's totally okay to do that, because if somebody is not taking responsibility and being self-governing, eventually in a relationship, it could be business, it could be anything. You can't even go to a job and not learn your duties and do your duties on the job. And even when there's new things that business is trying to implement, whether it's a new software, you have to learn those things. And if you don't, you don't take it on, you will not be able to be employed with that job. It's just how it goes.
And at the end of the day, if you want an empowering relationship, it has to be a situation where I'm going to work on and take care of me for you. Not that you have to take care of me for you. It's like, I'll take care of me for you, and you work with you and take care of you for me.
Exactly.
So it's like when you're taking care of self, you're really making it better for the other person, because it's like now they get a whole you versus a half of you.
Exactly. And the last thing we want to talk about, which is number 7, is operate in wholeness in that relationship. I think a lot of people feel that they are half of the whole, and no, you are two whole individuals coming together in oneness. All right. So whole is just more wholeness. So, and that's in any relationship. So, like he mentioned, you are a divine sovereign being and you walk in that wholeness. Now, in order to get to your wholeness, there may be development and growth and healing that is required. But again, because you're self-governing, you take that on, and you take that on knowing that because I'm working on these things, I'm going to contribute to the larger thing that's at play. right? So, and I think when you operate in your wholeness, you understand that you are creating your life every day, whether you're conscious of this or not. So the things that you see in your life, you have created it, whether conscious or unconscious. And I know sometimes it's so hard to accept because sometimes bad things happen and you don't like, I would never create this in my life, right? But perhaps in a past life, there was karma that had to be lived out. And so we are creating with our words, our thoughts, and our actions every day. So be whole in that relationship. Do the things that bring you to that wholeness.
That reminds me of a book that I read back in the day called Road Less Traveled. And in there was a chapter where it was talking about codependency. And it was just saying how a lot of people get it wrong. You know, you hear people say that the other person completes them. So that means that with that ideology is that I'm coming with a half and she's coming with a half, and together we have a whole. But they're saying that if I come whole and you come whole, we put together a bigger whole. And then also, like she was saying earlier, like sometimes things don't work out for whatever reason, right? But if I could leave whole and she could leave whole, then you could leave in peace and love and wish each other well versus what we see out there today, this destruction that people think is love, where it's this sick codependency where people feel they can't live without the other person, where they want to do them physical harm if they don't want to be with them, or, they can't get on with their lives because they were totally defined by the other person.
Yeah.
So it's best to be whole in order to have an empowering relationship, because it's like now we have so much more to give to one another, to support one another, and to create something special.
Yeah. And again, an empowered relationship is you are empowering each other. You're not making somebody feel powerless. All right. And that happens in relationships. People try to really take the power from people and try to make them feel powerless. And if you're in a relationship like that, I highly recommend you start to observe and see what's really happening, because you should feel empowered in that relationship all the time, all the time. I mean, no one should ever force their will, their beliefs, their judgments, their traumas, anything on you. And it's not your responsibility to heal that other person. It's not my responsibility to heal Russell. It's not his responsibility to heal me. Now, we can mirror each other and show each other areas that we probably need to work on. And it's within my will that I choose to work, because free will is the choice. And again, I always say the Most High God wants you to choose divinity. We are not here to force divinity upon no one. And the Most High is not going to force that upon you either. You have to choose divinity.
Preach.
All right. So that's all we have. Did you have anything else?
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. So this has been about tips and tools to have an empowered relationship. It does not matter what relationship it is. It could be romantic, it could be with your children, it could be with your siblings, business, whatever it is. We are interdependent, which means we are all dependent on each other. The law of relativity means that everything's relative, everything's really neutral, but we are relating with each other according to our own mindsets, beliefs, perceptions, all of that. So we have to check ourselves. We have to constantly check ourselves before we look out and pass judgment. All right. So that is it, guys. This has been another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. I'm Janie Charlot, and this is Russell Bruce. And we'll catch you guys at the next episode. Take care.
Peace.